So welcome to Storytime Podcast. My name is Rosemary. Today I'm here with Naomi. Hello, Naomi. How are you today?
Well, Rose, thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to start with a few questions. One that I usually start with is, when would you say you have been spiritually aware, awakened, or if you always noticed that about yourself?
Well, I was raised in a family where spirituality was discussed. So, like, one of the stories that was just a family story was that when my mother was pregnant with my brother, my father woke up from a dream one night, spoke German, and then came back to English, but remembered all these street names, the city, and all this stuff. And then they looked it up, and it was real. And it was a city or town in Germany that had been mostly destroyed in World War II. And that was always kind of an awareness that went on. Then when I was about 3 years old, I was watching a movie or a documentary on animals, and there was this lioness, Wedge, and she had lost her cubs, and she was wandering around trying to find her cubs, and she was doing this like boom, boom, like calling for her cubs. And I was just pouring tears. And in that moment, I knew that I had been Wedge, and that I had been that lioness, and that I had lost my cubs in another life. And in that moment, there was no way anybody could ever tell me that past lives were not real. And so my aunt also was a practitioner of reflexology, Geotran, which is a North American body work modality, and had all sorts of crystals and interesting books, and that's psychic fair for about 20 years or something like this. So her house was always quite interesting. And then my father, he'd have really strange questions. So like when I was really little, I'd go sit down on the bottom of the pool. And I found that if I went into the dark, there was kind of this edge in the dark. And I could, like, if I pushed under the edge, then it would have this pop sensation. And then I could stay underwater. And I seen it as like, I can breathe water. And then the one day I was doing that, and then I came up, and my dad's on the side of the pool, and he's like, "Do you go into the dark?" And I was like, "Whoa, what?" And then he's like, "Oh, I used to go into the dark, and I could swim 16 laps of the pool on one breath." And he's like, "I only came up because I knew that my brain logically would need oxygen by that point." So those kind of things happened where my dad would just say strange things. And then if I continued to poke him about, like, "Well, what is that?" And like, "What do you mean about this hypnosis thing you were in the 60s? And what do you mean?" I don't know, stuff. So then he'd hit her number, hand me the phone, and I'd ask to come over. And my aunt and father didn't really get along. And so then he'd drive me over, and then she'd look at me and she'd be like, "What do you want?" And I'd be like, "Well, Dad says, something about like this thing. And then she'd be like, "Oh, yeah, that's just the Merkaba, blah, 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 and hold this, look at this, code this, blah, 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 twist that, blah, 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 blah. Are you following?" And I'd be like, "Yes." I didn't want her to stop, even though I didn't understand half of what was being said. I liked it, though. So I always had that awareness that there was a lot more going on. My mom put on meditations for me as a kid and breathing techniques, and was also very open to saying that Christianity is fucked and the natives had it right. So I went to Teepee Tots, which was the only preschool on the reserve, and I was just we were all tanned in a very hot valley to attend Teepee Tots instead of the Christian preschool kind of thing. So there was a lot of strong values around traditional culture, respecting the land. And my father was always big on like the trees. You don't hurt the trees. You don't hurt anything. And you just be very gentle. So yeah, so right from the get-go, I had a lot of knowing. And when I had a lot of trauma, lots of intergenerational violence going on in the home and through the family line. And I was told to pray when I was a kid. My neighbor, she was Christian, and she was like, "Well, pray to God." And so I did, and nothing changed. I was like, you know what, that stuff, but the message that I got was that it's all for a reason. You have to be strong. You have to survive. And so I worked out like crazy. And I wrote my will when I was in grade 1, and I wrote my second will when I was in grade 3. Just to kind of put in the context of how kind of uncomfortable my beginnings were. I used to also get visions of like cutting my wrists, but I've later found out that that came from a great grandma who attempted to commit suicide when she lost her 4th child. But I don't think anybody in the family actually knows that. Yeah, so those used to haunt me. And so that's where I was like, wow, who's going to take care of my yellow turtle pineapple? And so that was my concern, was I better write my will, because, if I die, then who's going to take care of pineapple? And then in grade 3, I had this little striped bag I was very attached to. And so then it was pineapple in the striped bag. What is going to happen to those if I pass? And so just, kind of a bizarre kid. Play with unicorns and things like this, and tell my friends that there was unicorns in my corral that I rode, and just and then I would practice. If I lost my legs, what would I do? And I used to drag myself around the house. If I lost my legs, I would survive. If I lost my legs, I would survive. And then I would pretend that I had no eyes. Well, if I went blind, and so I'd practice my senses if I went blind, and then I'd be like, what would I do if I had no legs and no eyes? And I'd survive. And I'd practice pulling myself around the house that way in case I ever lost my legs and my eyes, which now doing past life redemptions and works like this, those are memories. Those are things that happened to me at one point or another. And so just interesting games. Told my stepmom when I first met her, I was about 5, told my stepmom that if I was lost in the woods, I would survive. And I was so bad. And then I was like, I have these. And I was showing her little honeysuckles, and I was like, I'd eat them like this. And then I was like, I'd catch tadpoles, and I would swallow them whole, and they'd wiggle down my throat and swim around in my tummy, but I'd survive. And she was like, okay there, kid. That's, that's good. But yeah, all layers of memories. Now that I've done digging into I've moved over 8 of my own past lives at this point. And yeah, found many of all of those things as those reasons why those were. When I was about 8, I got a bunch of clay from a lake and found it in a lake, and I was like, "Ooh, clay!" And so what do you do with a bunch of clay? Well, you sculpt a sarcophagus with Anubis's head and put your kidneys in it. And and I made that. My mom was like, "What is a sarcophagus and your kidneys?" And I was like, "Yeah, my sarcophagus." Where did you learn this? Why do you okay, Naomi, that's great. You're making art, kind of thing. So just always kind of had, nobody could tell me what. I was just always I know. And then I was like, Auntie Jane knows. And I can't understand, but she knows more than I do. So this is, and so I just didn't, I was never really phased. And then, as a kid, I was obsessed with saving the world. I wanted to save all the animals. So in grade 2, I started an environmental activism group called Fun Environment Endangered. And we met daily at lunch, but then weekly at someone's house. And we'd do activities and crafts, things like this, different parents' houses. And then, everybody would be playing around and stuff. But then I'd be like, meeting! And I'd call the meeting, and then we'd discuss the endangered animals and what actions how are we, and we'd set up picking up garbage and things like this and making signs. And so that went on from grade 2 to grade 6 until bullying and puberty hit, and nobody thought it was cool anymore to be called an animal name. And it really crushed me because I was devastated. I was like, the animals, though, the world, we have to do something. So I've always had this innate knowing and this drive of this prophetic time, and I knew that I'm here to assist. That's mission.
So I was going to ask, so really what hasn't changed, because a lot of people go through this shift when they're a kid, and it depends on where they are upbringing wise in their environment, of the, what you would say, the system or whatever it is that they're in. And then they go through this shift of seeing this reality space as what it really is. So it seems that you just took what you had, you were already at a stage and just evolved it. So nothing's much has changed between as you're a child, you just grew on it. Like what you wanted to do in your life.
To a certain extent, like I had to clean my stuff. So like I lived on the streets until I gave myself drug-induced psychosis when I was 18. I was locked in the hospital for 3.5 months and told my parents and told me that I had 30% chance of ever leaving the largest mental institution in Alberta. And so they pretty much broke my neck in the way that they psychologically work on you. Like I was like, I don't shave, I'm a feminist, and that didn't matter. It was a sign of, unhygienic. I was like, look, I've been, someone attempted to rape me. So like if you ever need to like control me, please use females because I will freak out if a male touches me and tries to restrain me. And there was just a lot of disrespect about any of those sensitivities. And so eventually I just got quiet. Like I realized like they were seriously going to keep me. They medicated me to the point where I was drooling. And thankfully my father came in and asked about that. And they were like, oh, she's doing much better. And my dad was like, did you notice that like, because my brother cracked a joke and I laughed and then I drooled and I went to catch it. But because they medicated me so heavy, I couldn't even. And so then I ended up getting like stringy drool all over myself. And so thankfully my father was like, lower her medication right now, or we walk out of here with her today. And my doctor was like, oh, no, she's not ready to go yet. But he had the fucking nerve to tell me that when he was done with me, that I'd be straight and that homosexuality is just chemical imbalance. And that was in 2000. And so, things like that. So I got quiet there. And then I spent 2 years very polite, very quiet, taking medication, doing the things that I'm supposed to do. All of my thoughts, all the things that I knew disappeared because when I lost it, I was in the process of grow always. I wanted to partner people together to create activism, art actions over the world to implement social change. And I was on it, but I couldn't sleep. And then I'd like look at my thumb and it would go down 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 to the point of math. And so I understood math as a universe and it made sense. And I was like, holy shit, the universe is just math. But then with the medication, all of that started to go away. And then with they offered me to either go back on my medication. Of course, they're doing landscaping right now. Or transition to a man was one of my options, which I had never knew was an option at that point. It was pre the trans movement. It was pre PTSD awareness. And so that really, like, I threw my meds out. I decided that there was something wrong with the culture because I'm two-spirited. There's both a male and a female in me. Yes. And when I was offered that, I was like, I'm not okay with what's inside me. So I don't think like cutting myself up and changing things. And one of the, like, you have to grow your hair out, or no, cut your hair short and then start going by the name of a man. But my father's name is Laurie and he's a long-haired man and always has been, radical hippie. So I was like, does that make a man? Does that constitute a male? I think if I have a door open, I'm going to close one door.
Okay.
There we go. At least that helps.
Yes. That's good.
So that started the journey, knowing the medication, and going across Canada and looking deeper into the culture of colonization and mental enslavement, binaries, things like this. And so that's where I needed to go after I had experienced this incredible understanding of the universe. It's like, I have to move the trauma first. Then when I was 28, I moved to Victoria, and I seen this wave on this school door one day. And I was like, oh, I wonder what that place is. Then I seen a brochure and it had this really cool gorilla. And I was like, oh, that's an incredible gorilla. I want to be able to paint like that. Then I went to the bar one night and I ended up having this great conversation with this woman. And she's like, oh, you would love this art school that I'm going to. It's incredible. This and that and the other. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then I went to the art school and brought my portfolio, was really anxious because I love art, but I also had come to this point of realizing I didn't know how to produce my skills were not actually there. And then when I got there, he ended up sharing with me the story of Pandora's Knot. And so like this guardian knot here was on Pandora's box, and she was trying to undo it, and it wasn't working. This hero comes in and he just cuts it. And then she's like, bah, because in the box is all the woes of the world.
Yes.
So she gets it put under a boulder and this and that. And then she wakes up, her nails are broken and bloody and dirty, and it took 4 men to put the boulder over top of the box. But then she got the box out. Like, she wakes up and had this dream that she lifted the boulder and got the box. Opens it, everything flies out except for hope. She manages to slam it shut to keep hope always in the chest.
Yes.
As he's sharing this with me, my whole hand is just going crazy. And I was like, oh, and I was like, okay. So, and I was like, I'll you know, if we're going to go Greek, like, I'll share with you my favorite Greek myth. But is decapitated, her unborn children are released from her body, which is Pegasus, and then another hero, somebody. But I love Pegasus. And I was like, so Pegasus is my favorite. And then he looks at me and he's like, do you know what the logo for this school used to be? Like, we only changed it like 3 years ago. And I was like, no, what was it? He's like, a giant 3 foot by 3 foot oil painting of Pegasus. And I was like, okay, universe, I know where I am. Mm-hmm. And I'd experienced a few things like Spring Festival awareness. And when I hitchhiked, my father taught me how to hitchhike and like how to move with the flow of energy so that you always go forward. You always make sure the energy is in the direction you want to go. So I always have moved like that because of my father's guidance. And then when I was attending art school, one of the profs, turns out he defragged an assassin in the Philippines. He did his PhD in paranormal activity and defragged an assassin, and then got refugee status in Canada and became an artist. And so he always had really interesting, really like knowledge to add to like design class. And then my other prof for art history started right at the beginning of time in like, you know, cave paintings, why did humans make art? And it turns out we're actually related. She's through my mother's side, my mother's father's side, we're actually related. And she's a little English and Welsh woman. And she's got really long hair and she looks a lot like my mom. And so she'd be in art class and she'd be trying to click on these folders. And then all of a sudden I'd see something and I'd be like, witches and whatnot. And then she'd like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, you collect your mistletoe with your silver sickle under the blah, 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 blah. And so then I was there for quite some time. And the one day the admin invited me in because I did administration for the school because I love the school. So I just talk to people, answer the phones, tell them, you know, what am I doing? And just that type of person. Community is a strong value for me. And so the one day they invited me in for a little sniff of scotch, and I don't really drink, and I'd never had scotch. So it was very quick that all of a sudden I'm all rosy, and my mentor Yvonne was there, and then these two. And they went to the bathroom, and all of a sudden we're all, I love you drunk, and they're telling me how I'm the daughter of the West and this and that. And then they go to the bathroom and it's just Yvonne and I there. And I'm like, I feel really drawn to share with you this experience I had of like the roof opening up and this serpent of light filling me and like, you know, and this going on. And she's like, do you have a mentor? And I was like, oh, I've been to like 2 drum journeys with this Thunderwolf Lodge, but I didn't really completely resonate and I'm not really sure, like, you know, kind of thing. And then she's like, well, I would love to apprentice you. Like, I'm one of the founders school in Eurasian shamanism. And so then that began my journey with the 13th house. And then I was looking for someone to help me with past life something because I'd experienced this process of regression and I knew that I have this ability of opening doors from back in 2007, the Spring Festival awareness. And then all of a sudden this woman is in my class, abstract painting class. She's an older woman. And we go for a little walk to get coffee the one day. And then I was talking about indigenous rights or something. And she's like, oh, I want to look into your past life. Like, you have too much animation in there to like not have something. And so we sat down to do a past life in just this, like the sculpture room. Because it's tiny school. It was like, I think in 3 years of going there, I had a handful of classes with more than 6 people. Lots of my classes were like 3 people. So we went and stashed ourselves in one of the areas and did a session and did a past life redemption process. And then it began. So for 2 years, I organized people to meet Lanny, and it was four sessions a day, 4 days a week in the little studio off my room. And I just like put the word out and then just pump them through, because she'd been doing mediumship for 17 years, but she wanted to practice and offer her services. So I organized people to see her, but whenever someone wouldn't show up, she'd just throw me in the chair and work on me. And so I learned a lot that way. Then we started Anamanchara, which was Soul Family in Irish. And we had 2 groups of 6 over 8 months that met in my house and did channel exercises and practice with Lanny as our like director. And like she'd be sitting there and like, yeah, something to do with like, and then she'd be like, Otis, you're over in like you're in Katie, come out, like focus in the front of you, not you're picking up on the person beside you, like, and she just makes sure to like rein us in. And during that time, I was doing the initiation process that I currently also do for 13th House, which is a Celtic year and a day process of journeying once a month through the Tree of Life into specific realms. And so I've done that process 5 times now in its fullness, and with Yvonne, and then learned about soul retrievals in the traditional sense, and then was working and organizing people to see Lanny. But then Lanny was like pushing me in the way that Yvonne wasn't, to like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you bring? And I was like, I don't know, something with my hands. Maybe I massage. Maybe I like, I don't know. And then finally the one day, Lanny, after like months of that, she was like, Naomi, past lives. Like, come on now. Like, you know, you're like, and I was like, oh, me? And she was like, yeah. And then I ended up meeting more different indigenous elders, sharing teachings, medicine people. I attracted my mentor in drum making and rattle making. And then just slowly began to accumulate the knowledge. And then since then, I've been trained and certified in dream alignment, which is a quantum morphic healing process. This kind of Aboriginal healing modality of Australia called Echidna Dreamtime, because me and the mentor don't so much get along. So I stand that Echidna was training me. He didn't train me. He just gave me the papers of what Echidna has been trying to train me to do over all these years, because it was everything I do in one modality. And then I also spent 18 months training with the Maori in a particular type of Romi and Fatumanama, working with the Pleiadians and the 12 heavens. So at this point, and then studied tarot and crystals and things like this. So at this point, I do an amalgamation of all things, plus coaching, to kind of bring about people's healings and understandings and comprehensions, and developing my philosophy of what it is that's going on here for this polarized plane that we know as Earth.
Yeah, so I was going to foray into that. What do you experience? And I know a lot of the community as it's going on talk about 3D, 5D, but what do you understand about the energy in the collective itself right now, and how that looks? What is the shifting? People say shifting timelines. What is your take on that?
So when you are born and your bed is made of nails, you walk from tribe. If you never walk from tribe has an electric grid of expectations, and they can electric shock you. So if tribe believes that cancer kills and you are still fixed in tribe, then if you get cancer, no matter what you do, cancer will kill, right? So that's the Kundalini breaking out from the root chakra. So you walk from tribe, you break from tribe, and you break from the tribal expectations that you were born into. Then you come up to your relationships to others. You take your survival into your own hand. That's your sacral chakra. Then you move up to your solar plexus chakra, your yeses, your nos, your boundaries, your willpower. And then there's a wall at your heart, and you have to focus your intention to break through the heart. And then there's a period of madness that happens at that time. So what is going on is that enough of us have broken through the heart, and now then you have to go back to tribe. And tribe tantrums, they're like, oh, good, you're here, sister, daughter, mother, this kind of thing. You twist over and then we walk on you. And it's like, nah, I love me, I love you. We don't do that anymore. And tribe tantrums. So what I think is going on right now, when we've seen the big discord going on, the division between the back, the unback, the this, the that, that's all solar plexus chakra. So it's just collectively, it's slamming up against the wall of the collective heart. And so getting into those fussy little fucking us and thems is bullshit. It's a waste of your time. Focus on the intention of the world that you want to see in, because we've got to break through the heart.
Yep.
Then when we break through the heart, it's a period of madness where you have to battle your internal demons. And you have to come to terms with what it is. But once you do that, then you know your passion, your perseverance. So I was at the activation of Uluru in January 2020, which was the activation of the rainbow serpent. I had heard that it was not done in over 300 years. And then slowly, with more connections and getting to know the mobs and the teachings here, I found out that that's not done because it's only done when the world is fucked. And then this rainbow serpent comes out and she rolls the world and she breaks the place. So I went to Bali after that, and then I seen the same kind of solar plexus issues. I seen it in us. We weren't welcome. Most of the people that thought that they were pale and high up there and masters and here to activate and here to assist, we were not invited to go with the actual custodians. And then when we gathered to do something with our group, it was all solar plexus issues. It was all about the weeping victim woman, the gay man who wants to be the special one, all the one, and nobody remembered how to sing properly together. Nobody actually understood protocol and respect of ceremony. And I was like, this is why, none of us, none of this, this is why we're not welcome to be there, because we don't even have a flippin' clue of the basics of respect. So we did our point, and they did theirs, and Peruvians showed up. People seen very select, really magical people seen these, people coming out in robes with this crazy crystal and called in this crazy activation of the ETs. And so there was people around doing that stuff. And we were assisting, but really, we are not respectful enough to be welcome in what is actually going on half the time, right? We're very little birds compared to what the big boys do on the other side, and that are actively still here on the planet, but they're hidden in the caves and they don't share with us because there's so much disrespect that has already been done. And they know that our little, our fat heads will get too big and we'll be like, I'm a master after 2 years of something, or a weekend work, right? So it's nah, you're not even welcome. In traditional indigenous teachings, your apprenticeship is 20 years. You are not a master until 20 years. So if you're someone who's I've been doing this for 10 years, you're still not a master. You are not a master after 2 years. You are not a master. And as you get longer and around the 12-year to 16-year point, that's when there's 9 different seals in traditional teachings of Turtle Island, coming from Jamie Sams, sharing them. And so the first 3 seals, everybody does them in spirituality. Whether or not you go through any of the other seals is up to you. The 5th seal is the one where you start to gather consciousness that then makes it so you have greater capacity. So they believe you can lift a fucking mountain. So then you can lift a mountain. And then what happens, that each of the seals has a trap you have to watch out for. And the 5th seal trap is that I am God. And you forget that you are a channel for source. And then see, that's where you see your cult leaders, your gurus that are they distort because they got hung by the 5th seal trap. Their 6th seal is alien contact. I refused to go through that until I met my Maori mentor, because I was people that talk to alien, they're crazy. And I was implants and sneaky shit that the ETs do. I was nah, that shit's not. But going in with the Maori, it's very, very direct. And the protocol, the respect, here's this person, here's the male, the female aspect of these beings, the celestials, the terrestrials, the guardians, here's their houses, here's their dog, here's how you approach, and here's how you go into the stars. So that's when I finally stepped through the 6th seal and was yeah, cool, I can get down with this. I can, learn about this stuff. But yeah, prior to that, I lost my track of thought of what we were saying. But
you were talking about the seals, yes.
It's
6th seal, yeah. And there's 9, which is very much.
Yeah, I don't remember the rest of the seals. So I was at the activation of Uluru. And so what went on is then shortly thereafter that, if you look at the ley lines of the earth, Uluru is actually the solar plexus chakra, and it goes up and it flows through to Bali, and then it goes into China. So where's the first place we've seen COVID? Then it rolls. If you look at the ley lines of the world, so it's just the rainbow serpent rolling the world. She comes in, she's in the realm of the north here, which is their realm of the south, our realm of the south, if you're in North America or above the equator. And that's the realm of fire and relationships. And so the rainbow serpent does not like greediness. She is about community relationships. And if you're being inappropriate, then you're done. And so that's, to me, is what COVID was. It was a rolling of the world, and the rolling of that us and them, blah, 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 garbage of the solar plexus chakra on a collective level. And then we're slowly seeing people simmer now because they're breaking through the heart. And the collective consciousness is starting to come into what is the wounding, the truth of the wounding that has happened. We've seen the stuff with the pedophile rings being collapsed, the distortion of the divine child. We see Huna going to all these places into the Vatican with his light work and the crystals. And we're flipping the gates at this point, the ones of us that are woke already and ready for this. And it's time. It's time. It's time to return the eyes, undo the curses. It's time to forgive, and it's time to focus, because there's another layer here, and there's another period of madness that happens once you break through that. Mm-hmm. So we've got to get our shit together, and we're starting to see it. People are simmering and relaxing. So I am really not a fan of anything that has to do with us, them, that, there, and reacting from fear, because that's just bullshit. It's lower chakra games. Get your fucking shit in order, meditate, do your yoga, and figure out what the heck, why were you sent to your room? What are you not doing right in your relationships to land, water, family, and this earth at large, and then the spiritual realm? Why did you get sent to your room to think about things? What have you done, and what have your ancestors done, and how can you walk right in your relationships with all that you do? So that's really what I see is going on here right now. I don't really worry about 5D, 3G. We are leveling up by frequencies of circle, square, circle, square, circle, square. It's the fractal pattern of when consciousness comes in contact with carbon. And so when carbon comes in contact, so like mass, consciousness starts to amalgamate mass. At a certain point, carbon can only make an orb, hence a planet. Then when a planet is birthed and is at a certain side, then consciousness is given rights to vie for what would the blueprints be for this consciousness. So then it's conglomerated with it, and it's like the two cells we see split, and it's the ozone layer. So it reaches down and the earth reaches up. That's why we stand up. We're half earth and half stars. Then it slowly takes time to build the horse. Over time, what's gone on is that we were really little people at first. We were really small people, but we go in and out of the frequency of 5, getting larger and larger. Side of the frequency of 5, finishing the cycle of that, and then we're going to go back into the frequency of 5, and we're going to become a 13-foot species. So we see the frequency going from 7.8 hertz to 13 hertz. We see the bumblebees changing their honeycomb sizes. We see that means, but anything that is rigidly carbon, when it changes the structure going up, has to break. So these out of frequency of points of 5, we are more destructive, but it's a bridge building time. Mm-hmm. And it's for this transition, expansion that's going to happen. So if that answers that question at all.
Yes, it does. And it answered the next one, because I was going to say, what kind of world do you envision as this future? It's a birthing process. So it is this contraction that you're going through. The water breaks, and then you have birth. So it is destruction, yet it's also birthing. So I was going to ask you, again, what would you envision a future of Gaia, of world, of the earth? So you answered that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the world is going to get small. It's just part of it. The earth has done this 4 times already, and we're in the 5th world right now. And so the world is going to get small. When the earth did this one time, 95% of life on the planet died off. When the earth did this another time, 85% of the life on the planet died off. Both times octopus made the cut. But it's just a thing. There's going to be deaths. There's going to be fires. There's going to be flooding. The world is going to get smaller because it's a pinch point in the seed of life. So when we look at the seed of life, it's actually not static. It's not fixed. It's a breathing geometric shape.
Yes.
So when we come into a world, it opens up and then the dimensions expand and all these other beings are birthed in other dimensions as well.
Yep.
But then as we come to these pinch points, it's not actually going like this. It's a little twist. So it's a twist and then flips to a new dimension. So we're heading for that twist. But the thing is that there's a lot of species of other interdimensional beings that their worlds are getting wrecked too right now and have been because everybody's worlds get smaller that were created during this pedal. And so then they've been vying for bodies and they've been vying for things as well. And there is a battle for who gets the bodies and who makes it through. So in about 1200, in my understanding of when I was doing things, was when there was really open dialect between like upper class, the 1%, whatever you want to call them, and some of these interdimensional species around harvest of bodies, so on and so forth. So things went into full roll and it looked like they were winning. They're like, heck yes, we're going to create this massive amount of intergenerational trauma. We're getting you guys to twist your spine. We're getting you guys to get at each other's necks. You're just going to be reborn, and you're going to not even have a chance. But that constipation of about 3,000 years of genocide stuff was actually perfect. Because what happens is now when we go to heal, we cut into that trauma like butter. And when you transmute trauma, it's the color purple. Purple is the color of of learning through suffering. So purple is a very difficult color to attain. And so when we go to heal, we think like, oh, here's my life. Yeah. And then we're like, oh, I'm just going to do some healing. And then all of a sudden we're like, ah! But it's because we're actually cutting into this like 3,000 years of unprocessed ancestral trauma that's happening. But what that's giving us is this amount of purple that we wouldn't have if we had immediately cleared it like we used to know how to do. But we've forgotten. And we're remembering now. We're trying to find our way, but we don't have any eyes. And then our neighbor had our eyes. So we have this weird integration with this other healer. And we don't know why everybody else loves that healer. But it turns out you guys had witch wars. And you kind of got to clear up the curses and you got to give each other's eyes back and you got to forgive each other for the distortion of protecting your country kind of thing. And then any which way, we have this massive amount of purple that is currently being hammered out in the forge right now. So we have this ability to have passion and perseverance and this attained knowledge through suffering that we have never, ever seen on the planet before. So as much as all the shitty stuff sucks, it was actually essential for the constipation so that the amount would be there so that when we transmute it, we have this ginormous purple suit of armor, these giant purple keys. We've got this purple like has never been on the planet before. Yeah. We are the otter people, and we've fucking work cut out for us, but it's all good.
I see it as this is a culmination even now is people, especially with the past life traumas and just people even recognizing their past lives and remembering that, breaking that membrane, is that we're at that now to become full spectrum, meaning your crystal, and when that white light full spectrum, it is all lights. That's that whole what people call shadow work. You're going into every mask, every aspect of yourself to go through that light. Mm-hmm. So I totally get what you're saying.
Anywhere that someone twisted their spine and became their ultimate protector, or made a contract, because it was pressure, right? They keep coming for your family. They keep killing you. They keep skinning you. They keep doing really weird, fucked up shit. At one point, somebody's grandmother got mad and was like, okay, we haven't pulled this one out in a long time, but you fucking want some? But then you unleash those things, and those things are deadly. And they are very hard to get back in the bottle when you let the genie out. And so that's what we're dealing with right now is like, okay, everybody fucking put your dogs away. Like, it's time to like heal. We need to get these we need to break the contracts on all levels and all dimensions. We need to clear and we need to heal and we need to forgive with love, because everybody took somebody's eye. Everybody ate somebody's leg. Like, it was just the times. And it's time to forgive and be accountable for all that we've all done to each other. And it's time to move and unite the tribes and focus on breaking through the heart, breaking through the crown at the proper point, making the bridge to source light instead of getting lost and losing our fire in these us and them's battles. And I don't like that, and losing strength because we're scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so wow, you answered almost all of my questions even without me asking, so this is great. And I like this type of dynamic. Okay, one last question. What is it, your passion in this now that you have? Your passion, what is your passion that drives you?
Well, I want to save the world. But so I want all beings to be peaceful. I want all beings to be doing what they love. I want all beings to feel empowered, enjoyed, respectful. I want all beings to love themselves and know the beauty and the magic of their heritage, of all the creeks that make up their river. And really, I love to make art, and I want to impact healing initiations for the world over. And I'm ready to run the lines around Gaia and do just that, and bring it, and help heal the world, and bring us back into the beauty that it can be, that we know it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I thank you for being
so
on
one teaching
here. And anything that you want to tell
Can I
people?
share one teaching?
Yes, yeah, I was going to say anything that you want to share right now before we close out, please do.
Yeah. So again, Teachings of Turtle Island from Jamie Sams. She's, I think she's Algonquin in Scottish or Cheyenne in Scottish, and she is one of the voices that brings to bridge the worlds. And but they say that there's been 4 worlds, and that the Otter people were the first world. They were very magical, very powerful. So my findings is that we were kind of like elves. We were light beings. We came from the stars. We were quite shapeshiftery. We were vegan, and we came down to Earth. We were kicking it around here for a bit, and then something went on, and the spaceship left. Half of us stayed and ended up breeding into wolves, and some of us eating meat and forgetting all about that. And then the other half of us went and studied in the stars. Then the world built itself up, tore itself back down, built itself up, tore itself back down, built itself up, tore itself back down. And then now we're back. And we are the old people. We are the new people. We are the same people, wiser than before. And that's why you see the people that are like, I'm Starseed. I've never been here before. Nah, you just haven't been here in a long time. And it was a long time ago that you were here, because 4 cycles of destruction. Our history books don't even have that in memory. We have maybe 1 flood that people talk about, but it's been 4 cycles since we were here. And so that's why the people that are like, beep, 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 are attracted to us, that are like, bones, fur, taxidermy, because we're cousins, and we are the Otter people. And half of us spent those worlds building up and tearing down, studying in the stars, and then half of us spent studying in the Earth. So it's time for us to unite the tribes, and to remember that we are the old people, we are the new people, we are the same people, wiser than before. So
thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining me today. And any future podcasts, you are sure welcome to come back, because I like talking with you. It's awesome. And I hope to see you again. So thank you. And I'm going to sign this one out for us. So please join us again.